Askreddit, what's your caught in a NSFW situation at work? I work nights in the reception at a small hotel. Once this older guy came down with his laptop and requested help because he couldn't make his porn work. So I had to update the guy's flash player to make his Filipino porn work. It was a bit awkward, but I'm not gonna deny some old guy his porn, so I fixed his computer and the dude was happy. Edit, did wash my hands after fixing the computer. Did not receive any extra tip, because that's not really a thing in my country of residence. He did give us a 5-star review though, with my name listed. I understand that it is awkward, but it shouldn't be. There are two types of men who watch porn, and men who lie about it. I was a janitor in college dorms. I worked with this 160-something dude with bad legs. One day my supervisor walked in on him pants down jacking it in the janitor closet. The way he tells it, they both locked eyes, then he just turned around and left. Edit, his bad legs were irrelevant to the story. It was just a distinguishing feature. My bad. Yup, that's usually how I handle it too. Walked into the bathroom to see two male co-workers looking at one of the crotches and saying, "Yeah, I'm taking you to the hospital right now." Turns out that the guy being examined was special needs and needed help knowing if he needed medical attention for a nasty skin rash. Turns out that it was just heat rash from wearing really hot clothing during the summer. Haha, props to those guys for being so open. I think something is wrong with my dick. Can you give me an opinion? Sure thing bro, let's examine that bad boy. A little over a decade ago, I was working as a quality assurance tester at Sony. Rather than slogging my way through unfinished video games, though, I was tasked with watching movies that had been released on Blu-ray, making sure that all of their various features functioned as expected when accessed on the PlayStation 3. While that might sound like an amazing job, it was actually less enjoyable than you'd think, both because I didn't get to choose what I watched, and because I'd have to endure repeated viewings for every subtitle track, alternate cut, and ill-conceived piece of commentary that was included on the discs. One day, I was assigned the movie Eyes Wide Shut. If you're unfamiliar with the film, here's what you need to know. Stanley Kubrick was, and still is, famed as being one of the most driven and detail-oriented directors to grace the silver screen. If anyone else had made Eyes Wide Shut, though, critics likely would have decried it as a filmmaker's excuse to surround themselves with dozens of naked women. There's a scene, for example, that's literally just Tom Cruise walking through a graphic orgy. Each person involved is wearing a mask, but nothing else. Anyway, as with any of the films that I was assigned, I had to watch this one a half-dozen times, at the very least, and given that my desk wasn't the most private of locations, my screen was completely visible to anyone who might happen to pass by. Word quickly got around that I was watching pornography, which prompted my supervisor to approach me from behind. "Max, what are you doing?" he asked. I kept my eyes glued to the screen, but held up the movie's case. "It's Eyes Wide Shut." Oh, he stood there for a little while, staring, until the manager walked over. "What are you guys watching?" "Eyes Wide Shut," we both said. Oh, over the course of about 10 minutes, my desk was slowly surrounded by the entire management team, up to and including the department head. When the orgy scene finally finished, they all glanced around at each other, chuckled, then hurried off to focus on whatever work they had been neglecting. It was something of a relief for me, and not, as you might be thinking, because I didn't like having my superiors crowd around me, but because I had been seated with my head at crotch level for the entire showing. Like I said, I kept my eyes glued to the screen. TLDR, watching pornography at work saw me getting surrounded by dicks. TLDR at the bottom, my old boss, who is married, has several kids, and lives a relatively successful life, used to have a shed that had an attic that was always locked. One day I was getting some fertilizer and mulch out of the shed and I noticed the attic door was propped open. My boss was off the property and I decided to sneak inside to take a peek. The moment I walked up the stairs there were two massive panels of plywood that had cutouts of nudes from Playboys and collaged together to make a giant 5x20 porn wall. A little further down he had like two magazine racks with literally hundreds of Playboys and an entire cabinet filled with VHS tapes and DVDs. Like it was his Jack Shack or something. Fucking autocomplete on my Chrome search bar. Opened elephant tube instead of expenses.companyname.com Alt+Tab as if nothing happened. That night I Shift plus delete all autocomplete, even the legit ones. For a while I was sort of dating our secretary. One day after work, after everyone had gone home, she came into my office and we ended up having a great time on my desk. About halfway through I picked her up and pushed her against the glazed glass wall of my office while she was straddling me. After I got tired, she turned around facing the glass and we continued until I finished. I had forgotten about the security cameras in the hallways and entrance. About 3 days later I get to work and there is a DVD+R on my desk with a note, "Hope you had fun," and it was of the camera that points almost directly at my office because it is on a corner. You could a lot more than I thought you could through those glazed windows. Security guy is either blackmailing me or a bro. He's a bro for sure, didn't snitch and gave you the heads up. But you paid your taxes, he kept a copy. I don't know if this counts, but I worked for a call center a couple years ago, and when we asked someone their name we had to say, "And who do I have the pleasure of speaking with today?" Well, for some fucking reason why, I have no idea, I asked the lady on the phone, "And who do I have the pleasure of sleeping with today?" The girl who sits next to me looked at me wide-eyed, and then I realized what I said and apologized profusely. The lady on the phone just started cracking up and then told me her name was Mary Ann. Edit, to answer the important question, I am sorry to say I did not sleep with Mary Ann. Also, thanks for the silver kind friend, smiley face. Did you get the sale though? I did. And it got me my bonus that month. Back in the early 2000s there was a NSFW prank floating around the internet. If you clicked it, a looping video of two guys going at it popped up on your screen and the PC speaker squawked, "Hey everybody. I'm watching gay porn." That wasn't the worst of it. If you tried to close the browser it spawned two more and kept spawning more if you closed those. I worked in IT and thought it was a hilarious prank, so I sent it to my supervisor in an email titled, "Important System Update." We always played practical jokes on each other and this would have just been par for the course. Only problem is he thought it was legit and sent it to the whole floor. My horror when only a few moments later I hear it playing on one PC, then another. Almost everyone in the office had clicked the link. People panicked, turned off their systems, losing all their work. It was a huge shit show. Believe it or not, I never got fired and actually got promoted a year later. Used to be a lifeguard and decided to take a break to walk the dog in the bathroom. Only had some family bathrooms, not really any men or women designated areas. So I sit down and whip out the old mobile device and start yanking the chain, when all of a sudden the door begins to open up and a younger dad who doesn't know how to knock, my fault I didn't lock it, decides that he is gonna walk right in. He then looks at me as I've got my dick in one hand and my phone in the other and turns to his wife, who couldn't see me, and says, "Let's not use this one, it's pretty dirty." He backed out and closed the door. I have never felt so relieved but so traumatized and a little mad. Mostly because he called me dirty lol. Edit, just wanna say that this was about 6 years ago when I was 15 and single. That's kind of a bro moment though. He basically saved you from even more humiliation. Not me, but a past coworker, we'll call him Bob Smith. He had logged into a shared computer in our lab one day, and he pulled up Outlook, and then turned around to do something with his phone while Outlook loaded. Well, let me tell you, our corporate mail filter failed that day. I walk in to see Bob turned away from the screen, and on the screen, in the Outlook preview pane, nearly full screen, was an email, less than in huge letters greater than Bob Smith, "Are you getting enough big black dick?" And of course, this lovely email was accompanied by a picture showing exactly what they were talking about, just in case you were unsure. I try to suppress a laugh, and just say to him, "Well, Bob, are you?" He looked at me, "Am I what? What are you talking about?" I point to the screen. He can't hit that delete button fast enough. The words, "Well, are you?" with no further context for anyone else overhearing, became a running joke between us. At my last job, there was this deaf guy who was non-verbal. The company brought in an ASL translator for every meeting, which was the only time you could really interact with him face to face. Honestly a stand-up guy though. One day I'm in the washroom taking a dump, and I hear something strange in the stall next to me. The steady schlick 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 of someone jerking off. Then some grunting. So I finished up quick and left the washroom. It was just me and the masturbator in there. I checked his shoes, then stood outside and pretended to be on the phone. Turns out it was the deaf guy. I just smiled and waved when I saw him. From then on, I noticed that he went to the washroom for a suspiciously long time every day. I guess nobody told him that masturbating makes noise. Edit, some people corrected me on my description of the man's disability. Telling my friend's story, with her permission of course, my friend had a big interview this day. She studied nutrition in college, and was interviewing with a hospital in Boston to work on their dietetics team. She went to the interview, and met with the hospital worker, sat down and chatted for a bit. It was going well, so the interviewer asked if she wanted a tour of the area of the hospital she would be working in. She agreed, and the hospital was beautiful, but the interviewer seemed a bit awkward during the tour. She figured this was their way of politely ending the interview when they weren't interested, and tried to brush the awkwardness off and compensate by being more energetic, which only seemed to make the interviewer even more awkward. Finally, at the end of the tour when she was leaving, the interviewer admitted that she had a lovely sweater, but there was a lacy, black thong stuck to her back from static. She had been parading around the hospital trying to talk herself up, all the while walking around with a thong displayed for all to see. Needless to say, she didn't end up working there, and to this day jokes about how if she's ever dying and we need to send her to a hospital, how she'd rather die than be admitted there. Only got caught peripherally in this one. One of my IT guys assigned to one of our regional offices kept getting help requests from one clerical, and most of the problems were questionable at best. She obviously just wanted to see him. One day he gets a call and goes up to her cubicle and she's standing there with her pants off. He backed out of that, put her on his do not respond list until things could get straightened out, and then called me for help since nothing he had done was working. Since she wasn't my employee, I picked up the phone and called the regional director. The initial contact was something like, "Hi, regional, first name basis, you know, I've always supported casual Fridays, but don't you think no pants Fridays are a little too much?" Later edit 1. Makes no difference what the woman looked like. Or the guy for that matter. Knowing the guy in question, he would have been deeply offended and upset whether she was Miss Universe or Godzilla's spawn. Simply not germane. 2. We had another similar instance a few years later with the genders reversed. The consequences were the same, paperwork in the file and the employee soon leaving in shame. 3. I probably should have indicated that this was more than 3 decades ago when consequences for this sort of offensive conduct were on a different scale than now.
Thank you all magnificent people. Leave your own stories below. If you enjoy the video, considering subscribe. I public video every day. Until then, check out my other video.